Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Patty Dorn with the Maryland Insurance Administration, and welcome to our event today, Public Adjusters and Contractors, what you need to know before you sign on the dotted line. Phones and computers will remain on mute for this part of the event, and I will be back to you later with more instructions. I'd like to introduce Maryland Insurance Commissioner Kathleen Finneran.
There we go. Hi, I'm Kathleen Finneran. I'm the Maryland Insurance Commissioner, and I'd like to welcome you to our webinar today. The Maryland Insurance Administration makes sure that all insurance laws of the state are faithfully carried out by the entities that we regulate. We conduct financial exams, we resolve consumer complaints, we authorize and we license insurance companies, producers, agents, adjusters, and advisors. We also approve all of the insurance policies offered for sale in Maryland by authorized companies and approve and reject the rates for most lines of insurance. But one of the most important things that we do as an agency is consumer education. We are committed to ensuring that Marylanders are informed and understand their rights when they interact with the insurance industry. And when there are times of distress, after a severe storm or another kind of disaster, that's the time when it's really important for you to understand what your rights are under your policies, and we're always there to answer those questions for you about that, but also understanding how the best way for you to go about processing your claim and who are the people that are there to help you to process that claim. And when do those people have to be licensed? Because we want to make sure that as you walk through the claims process, as you pick your advisors and the people that are going to help you with that claims process, that you work with people who are qualified and were necessarily licensed to do the work that they're promising that they're going to do for you. After there's a disaster, lots of people show up offering to help with their services, offering to do repairs and reconstruction, roofing work, whatever may be necessary after whatever physical damage may have occurred. And most of the people who show up, most of the people who are offering those services are trustworthy and honorable and operate within the law. But there are some bad actors. There are some people that try to take advantage. There are people that claim that they have the skill set and the ability to do things that they're really not licensed to do. And so today's purpose and today's discussion is really about the insurance claims process and specifically the roles that public adjusters play, how to avoid common scams, how to file complaints, really how to protect yourself. I'd very much like to thank the Home Improvement Commission, a division of the Maryland Department of Labor, and the Office of the Attorney General's Consumer Protection Division for joining us here today as we talk about these really important topics. We are looking forward to a great program. So do me a favor, play it safe, wear your mask, wash your hands, keep your distance. And with that, let me turn the program over to Patty Dorn, who will walk us through the rest of the program. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. Today, we're going to have 4 speakers. Each of our speakers today will go through a series of frequently asked questions about public adjusters, home improvement contractors, repair scams, and the insurance claims process. Phones and computers will remain on mute while the speakers are talking today. After the speakers complete their set of frequently asked questions, we will begin taking your questions, so please listen to the instructions carefully. If you are joining us via computer, we ask that you submit questions by using the chat box. You can do so at any time, and you don't need to wait until the speakers are finished to submit your questions. Again, you can ask the question in the chat at any time, during when they're speaking or after. If you have joined us by calling in on your phone, we will give you an opportunity to unmute and ask questions. And please speak one at a time, and we should have plenty of time to get to everyone today who is on the phones. In the chat, you should see a link to a document with helpful resources from state agencies. For those of you who called in on your phones, this document is available on the Maryland Insurance Administration's website under Hot Topics. Please note that this event today is being recorded. The event will end promptly at 2:30. And with that, I would like to introduce Joy Hatchett, Associate Commissioner of the Maryland Insurance Administration, and Jeff Gross from the Enforcement Unit of the Maryland Insurance Administration.
Thanks so much, Patty. And what I'd like to do is go ahead and start with Jeff. And Jeff, if you could just take a minute or two and explain what your unit, the Agency Enforcement Unit, does and how you help and what roles you play with consumers.
Sure. The Enforcement Unit of the Maryland Insurance Administration, what we do is we investigate complaints against people who hold an insurance license. There's other units that investigate what the company does, but we look at what a licensed person and what they do in the insurance business and if they have a complaint lodged against them. So to give an example, a public adjuster is somebody who has to have a license in the state of Maryland. So if somebody has a complaint about the actions of the public adjuster, then that would come to the enforcement unit of the administration. And we would request documents, talk to people, take statements, and then we would see if we felt that we had enough evidence to show that either A, the public adjuster acted appropriately, or B, that they may have violated a insurance law of Maryland or regulation. And that's the biggest help the enforcement unit provides to consumers, because a lot of times consumers are confused, they don't understand, and just the act of making the complaint, sometimes we can help them and explain to them what has occurred or what the public adjuster is doing.
So Jeff, could you go into a little bit more detail and explain to folks exactly what a public adjuster is?
So a public adjuster is a person who, like I said, has to have a license in Maryland. And they do this work for compensation. And what they do is they negotiate your settlement, your claim, the settlement of your claim with your insurance company. So the public adjuster, once hired, and you have to sign a contract in order to hire a public adjuster, that public adjuster is supposed to work for you. And they're the ones that deal directly with the company adjuster. So the insurance company has their company adjuster. You have, if you hire one, you have a public adjuster, and they work together to come up to a settlement for your claim. When, further explain the difference, when you file a claim with your insurance company, they'll typically send out a company adjuster who will survey the damage and estimate the cost of repairs and come up with a number they feel is appropriate to complete the repairs or cover your loss. What will happen is your public adjuster will, if you hired one, will make sure that they haven't missed anything, and they are experienced enough to know that they can go down the list of things and say, okay, this is missing, that's missing, and that can help you make sure that everything is noted by the company. They will also take care of the settlement negotiations, and the big thing to remember, though, is even though you have hired the company, the public adjuster, and that their payment comes from your settlement amount, the insurance company will not pay the fee for the public adjuster.
So Jeff, when it comes to that fee, is there a standard public adjuster fee?
In Maryland at this time, no, there's not a fee limit or a range of fees that the public adjuster is allowed to charge. So the law says that in the contract, the fee has to be specified. So when you read that contract and review it, it has to say in there what the fee is. I have seen fees range from, depending on what the work is and who the company is, I have seen the fees range from 15% to as high as 35%.
And do they collect that fee in the very beginning, once the settlement, or when do they get their money?
So with the public adjuster, what happens is the check is issued by the insurance company, and typically it'll have the public adjuster's name on there and the insured's name. So once both parties sign that check, the public adjuster will deposit that check into their escrow account. They will take their fee from that check and give the rest to the homeowner or the insured. If there are multiple checks for a settlement of a claim, they will take that percentage out of each check. They won't take, and they're prohibited by law from taking everything from the first check. So to give you an example, say if you know that your claim is going to be $100,000 at the end of the day, but the insurance company issues a $50,000 check first. If the public adjuster has a fee of 20%, they can't take 20% of $100,000 from that first check. They can only take 20% of the $50,000. I mean, 20% out of the $50,000. So it can only be per check. Now, of course, if there's only one check issue for the whole claim, it will come out of that one check.
So what should a consumer think about or consider when they're trying to decide whether they should hire a public adjuster for their particular claim?
Well, there's three things I think are very important for a person to consider before hiring a public adjuster. First, you have to ask yourself, have you already filed a claim with your insurance company? And because sometimes we'll see public adjusters will be in neighborhoods soliciting business from people before they've even filed a claim with the insurance company. And what that means is you have not even received an offer on a claim to be settled from your insurance company. And at this point, your insurance company doesn't even know about the claim. So that's the first thing. So you have to be aware of when the public adjuster is coming to you. And the public adjuster can be hired at any time during the claim process. So you don't have to hire a public adjuster before you make a claim. You can wait. Some people do this, they wait until after their claim's been filed, they get a settlement offer from an insurance company, and then maybe they're not happy with it, then they hire a public adjuster. The second thing to consider is the amount of the fee that the adjuster will charge. And I touched on this briefly a minute ago. For example, if you have a claim that's going to end up being $10,000 and the adjuster's fee is 15%, you're only going to receive $8,500 for that claim. If that fee is 35%, then you're only going to receive $6,500 for your claim. So when you see that, if you're going to hire a public adjuster and you see the contract and you see what the fee is, this is probably the most important. Keep in mind that the insurance company is not going to pay that fee for you. You have hired a public adjuster. The public adjuster's fee will come out of that settlement money. Finally, the insurer does not issue a check, more than one check to each of you. So if, as I described a minute ago, the check will typically come in your name and the public adjuster's name or the public adjuster's business name and have to be divided. Sometimes, depending on the size of the claim, if you have a mortgage, the mortgage company will have to sign off on that check also. And the final thing to consider is make sure you take the time to read the public adjuster contract and understand it before you sign. I mean, that's a big thing. You should always review any contract, whether it's insurance or not. Before you sign it, you should really review it and make sure you understand. Because in the case of a public adjuster, once you sign the contract, you only have 3 days to cancel that contract unless the public adjuster contract allows for more time. So make sure that you understand the contract before you sign it. And if you think of the MIA at that time, if you have a contract you're thinking about signing, we have many resources that you can read or download or have a link to that you can use to refresh your memory about what a public adjuster does and how they operate and what the laws are before you sign. And sometimes we even get calls from people before they sign a public adjuster contract.
Let's stay on this question about contracts for a minute. Does Maryland law require anything be included in that specific contract with the public adjuster?
It does, and I won't go into all of them, but I just want to mention the couple big ones. One, as I already said, the fee being charged has to be specified in that contract, and it has to be right in there. So when you read the contract, it will say it clearly. The name, address, and license number of the public adjuster must also be on that contract so that you know who you're dealing with. And it's very simple to go online and before you sign the document and check the license number of the public adjuster to make sure that perhaps it could be somebody who's just going through the neighborhood who's giving you a fake license number. So you can check all that easily through the internet before you sign the document. And the final thing that has to be specified in there that I want to talk about, and this is pretty important, it has to list any payment that the public adjuster will receive in addition to the fee you're being charged. So sometimes what we see is maybe the public adjuster will recommend a contractor. Now, I'm not saying this happens every time the public adjuster recommends a contractor. I'm saying this is something I have seen at times in my work here at the MIA. And they recommend a contractor. Well, maybe the contractor is giving them a commission on the work that's being performed on your home. Well, if the public adjuster is receiving some sort of commission, then that has to be spelled out in the contract, the public adjuster contract. So it'll be in there somewhere. There's no standard of where it would fall in the contract. It just has to be listed. And there's some other information that the law mandates, like your rights under consumer protection laws in Maryland and things like that have to be attached to the contract so you're aware of.
Now, Jeff, you mentioned public adjusters and contractors. Can a public adjuster require you use a specific contractor?
No, that's not true at all. The public adjuster is contracted with you only to negotiate and help you settle your claim with the insurance company. If they help you find a contractor, as I said a minute ago, they must specify in the public adjuster contract how much compensation, if any, they're going to receive from that contractor. This can also include additional living expenses, say if you can't live in your house. If the adjuster helps you find a place to stay because you can't live in your house and they're receiving compensation or some sort of commission off of that, then they have to specify that in their contract.
Okay. And one of the things that we've heard in my unit is sometimes the public adjusters will say that if you use them, you won't have to pay a deductible. Is that accurate?
No, that's a real short answer. The Maryland law specify, nobody else can pay your deductible for you. You're going to have to pay that deductible.
And another thing that we have seen after events is sometimes public adjusters will show up at an individual's home and say that they've seen damage and that they need to file a insurance claim. Do you have any recommendations or things a consumer should consider if that happens to them?
Right, I do, and we do see this, and we do see complaints on this. When a consumer receives unsolicited contact from a public adjuster, there are several things they should do. The public adjuster should be asked to leave a copy of what they say the damage is and a copy of the public adjuster contract. In addition, the homeowner should stay with and observe the public adjuster while they inspect their property. So if the public adjuster says, hey, I'm going to go up on the roof and look at things, and you give them permission to do that, you should stay outside and watch them while they work on the roof. There have been incidents where the person gets on the roof and they cause some damage. So you want to continue to observe the person while they're looking at your home. And finally, the homeowner should take time to review the contract, as I talked about before, and any of the damage that's listed in there before they make a decision. You don't have to sign that contract right away. You can take your time to review it and decide if you want to file a claim. And then even if the public adjuster said to you, this is what the damage is, you don't have to hire that public adjuster. You can just ignore it because you don't think it's a problem, or you can go file a claim with your insurer without that public adjuster. That are all your rights. You do not have to use that public adjuster if you don't want to. But once you sign that contract and you're past your 3-day cancellation period, you're in with that public adjuster until the end of that claim. And one last thing I wanted to talk about that we've seen, when you're talking to that person that knocks on your front door and they say, and I'm making up these names, this is not a public adjuster company, we're from ABC Public Adjusting, and this is what we say. You don't want the name of that company. You want the name of that person you're talking to and the license number of that person that you're talking to at your house at that time, because they are required to be licensed. So you want to make sure that unlicensed people aren't coming in and selling you public adjuster services. You want to make sure you're talking to an actual adjuster.
And one last question for you, Jeff, and it's something that we hear from time to time. A person hires and signs a contract with the public adjuster, but then there's like 2 or 3 weeks and they don't hear from that public adjuster. People want to know, can I cancel the contract with the public adjuster at that point in time? And if I can't, what are my options?
Right. So unfortunately, you only have the time to cancel that's specified in the contract, and it has to be at least 3 days. So if you're outside of that time period and you feel you're having a problem with your adjuster, well, then that's when you should, if you have no other recourse, no other way to get a hold of him or her, and you're tired of waiting, then you should contact us. And sometimes just contacting us and then us contacting the public adjuster, or this goes for any insurance licensed person that we deal with, you'll get a phone call back after we call them. So sometimes that's just enough to get things going.
Thanks so much, Jeff. Patty?
Well,
Thank you, Jeff. And with that, we'd like to introduce Karen Strawn of the Office of the Attorney General.
Patty, before we go to Karen, let's go ahead and talk a little bit with Dave from the Home Improvement Commission, so he can talk a little bit about contractors, since that really sort of flows from what Jeff was talking about.
All right, that sounds good. So next up, we'll have Dave Finneran from the Department of Labor.
Can everyone hear me? Good afternoon. This is Dave Finneran. I'm the Executive Director of the Maryland Home Improvement Commission. I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about our agency and what we do. We were established in 1962 to protect the public from predatory home improvement contractors. Contractors that would take advantage of folks when they were working on projects on their homes. This is all residential based. We administer the home improvement laws of Maryland, and we're tasked with licensing contractors and salespeople that sell home improvement contracts. We're also tasked with investigating complaints against contractors. Complaints can range from unworkmanlike work, unsatisfactory work, or abandonment. Contractors that simply abandon the project before it's completed. We are also administer criminal complaints. So we have complaints that come in against unlicensed contractors, and those complaints are criminal in nature, and we process them through the court system often. We have a staff of 17. 9 of them are investigators, and they investigate complaints throughout the state of Maryland. We license 33,000 contractors and 3,000 salespersons, and we'll typically receive about 1,500 complaints a year. And that's a good description of what we do at the moment. And
So,
Joy? Yeah.
Yeah, so Dave, now, do you have regulatory authority over all contractors or just some?
Well, there's a number of different categories of contractors. Just to explain a few, we don't, just to answer that question, the short version is no, we don't. We license contractors that perform home improvement residential home improvement work. And the list of home improvements can be pretty broad. It's going to be anybody from painting your house to putting roofing on to paving your driveway, and so many more categories. They can be found on our website. But the agencies that we, or the contractors that we do not regulate, are the new home contractors. They're regulated by the Consumer Protection Division. They're under the Home Builder Registration Unit. We don't administer the laws of the marine contractors. These are folks that would come in and do bulkheads and riprap and docks if you live on the water. And commercial contracting, people that do commercial work are not regulated in Maryland, and neither are subcontractors that work for other contractors. So if you hire a roofer and they have a staff of employees, or they sub their work out, the subcontractors are not regulated and are do not hold a home improvement license. I do want to mention that there are also other categories that you may consider as might be home improvement, but are not regulated either. Debris removal, any cleanup services, they do not fall under our regulations either.
So I know one of the things that we see frequently is immediately after a disaster, somebody comes and boards up your windows. Are those people considered home improvement contractors?
No, unfortunately, they're not regulated either. So you're going to really have to be careful with these folks. They'll come in and they'll tarp your house if it's going to leak, or board up your windows. But no, they aren't regulated by us.
Thanks. So when a consumer is thinking about hiring a home improvement contractor, what kinds of things would you think they should be, what questions should they be asking, or which things should they be considering?
All right, some of the tips that I recommend for choosing a home improvement contractor. First off, remember, we're going to only hire licensed contractors. If you do hire a licensed contractor, you're protected by the home improvement laws of Maryland. Included in those laws is a guarantee fund that's funded by contractors, and that fund's there and available to award money to a homeowner that may have been harmed by a contractor, such as unsatisfactory or abandoning unsatisfactory home improvement work, or abandoning the project. We have a fund that'll pay you up to $20,000 if a claim is made and successfully defended. That check could go directly to you to get that job done and repaired. We are asking all homeowners that are considering using a contractor to contact us before they sign the contract. And we are asking that they, you could go to our website, just Google MHIC, you'll find our website, and either call or email any of the numbers that you find on our website. They all go to a group email, and they'll get through to us, and we can give you information on a contractor. We can give you their complaint history. We can give you whether or not they are properly licensed, and some good information that makes you gives you a better chance of making an informed decision. When you do hire a contractor, let's ask for their contractor license. They carry around a pocket ID. A photo ID of the contractor would not be that would be something that you should also ask for. Let's get your contract in writing. Don't sign anything until you understand the terms. If you need to get legal representation to review the contract, let's do that before you sign the contract. Home improvement contracts have the protection of cancellation period. It's a 5-day right of rescission, or 7 days if you're 65 or older. And you have that time to cancel a contract that you've recently initiated. But let's try to make sure you've done your homework before you sign that contract. Make sure all project materials and expectations are spelled out in the contract, including the cleanup and debris removal. And make sure you're getting exactly what you want. You have to be you got to communicate with your contractor, and let's get it down in writing. Be cautious of the door-to-door repairs, services, or business flyers that are left on your property. Again, call us if you get one of those, and let's vet that contractor properly. Never paying cash. We want to be able to trace that money if there's a problem. So a credit card or check or cashier's check are recommended. even for the smallest job, let's get proof that the contractor is licensed for the type of work being done. That's going to be an important feature. And those are some of my recommendations here, Joy. These are all available in the consumer section of the MHIC website as well.
So Dave, I was recently thinking about getting some work done, and a friend of mine said, you need to make sure you get estimates. How many estimates should I get from a contractor before I hire them?
Let's find 3 licensed contractors if you can. Let's try to get 3 estimates. The estimates are important. They're going to give you, you'll be able to see the balance of what someone's, what their vision for your project is. And if you can't get 3, recommendations are also a good service. So if the contractor can give you some references, I'd check those references as well. But 3 is the recommended number.
And also, are contractors allowed to charge me for just giving me a bid on the work?
They are. It's not a violation of home improvement law to have a contractor come out and charge you to give you an estimate. It's an unusual situation. I know it happens. I don't recommend you pay for a bid. There's plenty of contractors out there. Like I said, we have 33,000 licensed contractors. Let's try to find one that will work with you and give you the estimate that you need without having to pay for it.
And should I require that my contractor have liability insurance before I hire them to do anything? And should I ask to see a copy of their certificate of insurance?
Yes, we require, in order to become a licensed contractor, we require that the contractor hold a minimum of $50,000 in liability insurance. We keep that information on file. It's certainly, you can request it from us and we will provide you with that information. But you should be able to have the contractor give it to you directly. That contractor, and I would verify that information. The agent's phone number should be on the information they give you. And let's call that agent to verify that the contractor's liability is current and up to date.
So, and this is another question that when I hire that contractor, how much money should I give him? Should I pay for the entire job, or what are the rules about that?
Well, the deposit is certainly a negotiable item. You're going to want to make sure you negotiate that. You don't have to take what the contractor's demanding. You can negotiate that item. The rules do require that the contractor collect no more than 1/3 at the time of signing, at the time of contract. The law is silent after that. So the very next day after he signed the contractor signed the contractor could ask for the balance of the money, and it could be written into the contract that way. Just not smart. So let's see if we can make the money follow the work. Let's not let the work get ahead of the money, or the money get ahead of the work. Let's try to make the draw schedule, the payments fair to all. The contractor needs money to work, but you don't want the contractor getting too far out in the head with the money. So it's a negotiable item, but 1/3 down is the max at the time of contract. That number is negotiable as well. You could certainly negotiate it down to 10% of the contract price.
Now, if I have a contractor, am I the one that's required to get the permits from the county in order to get work done, or is that the contractor's responsibility?
Well, in home improvement law, it's written that the contractor is responsible to ensure that every permit that's needed for the project is on the project. It's been pulled and posted on the project. So the law doesn't say that the home improvement contractor has to obtain those permits. It certainly can be the homeowner. It can be the architect. It could be an engineer, but it certainly could be the contractor. But it is not a requirement that the contractor post it. It is a requirement that it be on the job, and it is the responsibility of the contractor to make sure it is.
Now, are there ever times when it's okay to fire your contractor? I mean, are there any rules about that?
Well, this is a touchy one. there comes a frustration point where a homeowner actively wants to fire their contractor if it goes bad. We have this, I've mentioned the guarantee fund that will pay you back for a project if the contractor did unsatisfactory work or abandoned the project. But in order to receive that award, the contractor has every right to finish that project. So if you have a contract with the contractor, you can't just throw him off for a reason that's not very strong and in your favor. If you want to be careful with that, because if you're going for that claim and you've thrown the contractor off and he didn't have the ability to go in there and complete the project or even complete a repair, if there is a fault with the work, the contractor has the right to come back and fix that. You can't say, no, you already had your one chance at this. The contractor will need to have access to that project and get it completed if he has the ability, he or she. And so you be careful throwing something off. I recommend you hire a lawyer and discuss that with your legal representative as well.
So what if the contractor's just behind schedule, way behind schedule? What, do I have any options then?
Well, it depends on, you certainly do. I mean, you want to communicate with your contractor, both in writing and verbally, and keep a log, keep all your records in one folder, keep them organized. Make sure you've given that contractor every opportunity. If he's not responding to your information, your requests, you're building a stronger case for yourself. At some point, there will be a time where you think you have enough information to throw this contractor off the job. He's behind times, but simply being behind weeks or even a couple months is not a good reason to throw your contractor off the job. There's valid reasons, weather, there's the COVID excuse as well. So be careful who you throw off the job.
Thanks so much, Dave. Patty, I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks, Joy. Our next person answering questions today is going to be Karen Strawn from the Office of the Attorney General.
Hi.
Hi, Karen. Can you tell us just a little bit about what your office does and how you assist consumers with various scams and things related to contractors?
Our office is the Consumer Protection Division, and what we do is we mediate complaints when a person has a problem with a business. So we can mediate with a actual business, or we can mediate with a scammer if we have someone that we know is the actual scammer. And what we try to do is to resolve the problem to make both people satisfied with what's happening, both the business and the consumer. We can mediate consumer complaints involving contractors, involving anything that is a purchase of goods or services for personal, household, or agricultural use.
So Karen, we heard Dave mention that his group doesn't have jurisdiction over those people that come to tarp your roofs or board up your windows. If I had a dispute with one of those people, could I bring that to your office?
Absolutely. We're sort of the fallback position. If there is a primary regulator, we try and send you to the primary regulator, but if it's something that there isn't a primary regulator, it would fall to our office. And we can also handle things such as if the work was done more than a year ago and you're now filing a complaint, the Home Improvement Commission usually will not take that complaint. And that's something that our office can help with. And we can mediate and see if we can get you some relief.
So Karen, what's the difference between your office and the Better Business Bureau?
Well, both offices mediate. The biggest difference is that if you are mediating with the Better Business Bureau and the business does not respond or does not provide a favorable response, the Better Business Bureau can change their rating, which is they use a rating of A through F. And they can do that if they decide that a business is not being responsive or is not providing adequate answers. Our office actually keeps track of all the complaints that we have filed with us. And if we notice a pattern of unfair and deceptive trade practices, we can take an enforcement action on behalf of the citizens of Maryland. And we can then go after that business and hopefully get restitution on behalf of a large group of citizens who may have been affected by the improper actions of a business.
So can you tell us some of the home improvement and repair scams that your office has recently seen?
We see a lot of different home improvement and repair scams. Many of them deal with situations where they come to your door and they might tell you that they're working on a project down the street. And they want to be able to sign you up to do work because they have additional materials and things of that nature, so that it would be cheaper for them to do the work for you than it would be if you went to someone else. And unfortunately, sometimes there is work being done down the street and it looks good, but if you don't check into it to find out if that's the actual contractor doing the work, and to find out that the person who's getting the work done is happy with the work, you could be in a place where you are hiring someone who is not doing that job, or who's doing a poor job, and who is going to scam you out of your money.
And do you have any general advice that you would give a consumer before they enter into a contract for home repairs?
Do your homework. And that means find out if this is a licensed individual, if they're required to have a license. Call the Consumer Protection Division and find out how many complaints we've had against that business. Call the Home Improvement Commission and find out how many complaints they've had against that contractor, because that is good information for you to check into to determine whether or not this is a contractor who does what he says he's going to do, or this is a contractor who falls behind on the things that he is committed to with his consumers. And this will help you to know whether or not you will have resources that you can recover from, such as the guarantee fund through the Home Improvement Commission, if you are not successful. It will also tell you whether or not we can tell you at the Consumer Protection Division how many complaints we've had against them in the last year and in the last 3 years. And we can tell you whether or not once we began to mediate, we were able to reach a resolution. And that will tell you whether or not this is a business that works with people once there is a problem.
And what advice would you, or what sorts of things would you tell a consumer if they are unhappy with an existing contract? What are the types of rights and things that your office would help a consumer with if they want to just cancel the contract?
Well, if you want to cancel the contract, the first thing you need to do is you need to look at the contract and see what the terms are and see if any of those terms have been breached by the contractor. The second thing you need to do, or maybe even the first thing you need to do, is to determine whether or not, if this was a door-to-door sale, and all that means is it's a sale made by the contractor, not at the contractor's primary place of business, and they sell that contract to you or get you into that contract by coming to your door or by doing it at a fair or something of that nature, you have 5 days for a home improvement contract to cancel that contract for any reason. You have 7 days if you are over 65. So you have a period of time that you can cancel those contracts automatically, regardless of the reason. If you're beyond that time, you want to look at your contract and see if there are other situations that may allow you to cancel your contract. And you would have to determine whether there would be a penalty for that.
Now, I'm always seeing or hearing on the radio about financing home improvement jobs, and you can get work done and not pay anything for like 3 or 4 years. Do you have any advice for consumers that are considering financing a contract for home improvement?
Well, it's really a very personal decision. It's going to depend on whether or not you can afford to pay for the contract up front, what the terms are for financing, what the interest rates are, whether there are late fees or penalties, and what everything is involved in putting off paying for this. Because it's a personal decision whether or not you can afford it, and it's a personal decision whether or not you can meet the parameters involved in financing it. There are sometimes deals where if you finance and then you pay it all off within the first 2 years, they won't charge you any interest. But you need to make sure that you can set up arrangements that you will be able to pay it off within that time frame to not have interest. Otherwise, if you are 1 day late, all of the interest for the entire contract period will apply.
And one of the things that I have seen and I appreciate from your office and the Attorney General's office in general, are all of the tips that you guys put out about the fraud and the scam. And it's just, I know as a consumer, it's something that I find very, very helpful. And I would encourage everyone that's on the line with us today to pay attention to those tips. And if you're finding that you're having any issues, reach out to Karen's office because they do a great job. And thank you so much, Karen. And
Thank
Pat,
you.
I'm going to turn it back to you.
Thanks, Joy. Next up, we have Mary Jo Rogers with the Rapid Response Program of the Maryland Insurance Administration.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Mary Jo. Why don't you take a minute or so and just explain what the Rapid Response Program is, what you guys do, and how you can assist consumers?
Absolutely. I work in the Rapid Response Program. That's under our Consumer Education Unit. And the Rapid Response Program is an informal complaint process where consumers can file a complaint involving a property or casualty claim, such as a home or an auto claim. And we try to resolve it informally within a couple of days, usually 2-3 business days. We answer questions, help them understand the claim process, and we give the insurance company an opportunity to do the same, to review, to make sure it's been paid properly, and to reach out to that consumer to explain to them what is happening with their claim. Now, if someone has an issue with a claim and wish to participate in the Rapid Response Program, there's a couple of ways they can do that. They can file a complaint online at our website, which is www.insurance.maryland.gov. They can send us a business letter, and our address is also on our website, or they can give us a call and we can take some information over the phone and get that process started for them. Now, most insurance companies do participate in the Rapid Response Program, but not every insurance company, but most do. So if you reach out to us, we can check and let you know whether or not that company is a participating company.
So, Mary Jo, let me ask you, I mean, we get a lot of questions. Obviously, you guys get a lot of questions in the Rapid Response Program about all types of claims-related issues. And one of the primary things that we get asked is, can a public adjuster get more money for an insurance claim?
The amount of your settlement is based upon your damages and your policy coverages. The insurance company is only required to pay the amount owed under the terms of your policy. The key is to submit documentation to support full payment of your claim. A public adjuster cannot require the insurance company to pay more than what is owed. It is important to remember that you are responsible for paying the public adjuster's fees. Those are deducted from the amount of your settlement. We have additional information on our website that will help you understand the claims process and what documentation should be presented to help you receive full payment for your claim.
Okay, so if a contractor says that the consumer's roof has been damaged by a storm and the entire roof needs to be replaced, and the insurance company comes back and says there are only some damaged shingles and that's all they're going to pay for. Does the insurance company have to pay for the entire roof?
The answer to this question depends on the terms of your policy and the damage to your roof. The company may only owe for damaged shingles. Your roof may need to be replaced for a reason other than something covered by your policy. Perhaps the shingles are beyond their life expectancy and are worn out. In that case, depending on your specific policy, the insurance company may only owe for the damage caused by the covered peril, such as wind. Now, some insurance companies, for an additional premium, offer full roof replacement coverage. Find out if you have this, or if you want to purchase that additional coverage, you should speak with your insurance producer or your insurance company to learn first if they offer such coverage, and if so, what that additional cost would be.
Now, here's something else that we see a lot of. There's a hailstorm in a neighborhood, and neighbors say they had the exact same damage to their roof as their neighbor. Their neighbor's insurance company paid for the entire roof, but they can't get their insurance company to pay anything or very, very little. What could be the reason for that?
Well, each claim is different and each policy is different. What is owed is based upon your specific situation and not how your neighbor's claim was paid. Your neighbor may have purchased that additional roof coverage, or they may have had damage different, such as damage to the entire roof, while your damage was only confined to a portion. I'd suggest speaking to your adjuster about why only a portion is being replaced or it's being denied for an explanation.
And I'm going to ask a couple more questions about roofs. After major storms, we sometimes see roofers sort of walking the neighborhood, saying that they can get roofs repaired, pay deductibles, consumer won't have to pay anything. Is that legal?
No, the contractor cannot legally pay your deductible. The deductible is your portion of the loss, and you are responsible for paying that amount. I would be cautious of any unsolicited contractor. It might be a good idea to contact the Maryland Home Improvement Commission to make certain a contractor is licensed and that his license is in good standing.
Now, this is a question about both roofs and siding. Mismatch. I mean, we see a lot of questions about that and whether or not insurance companies have to pay for full replacement if the siding doesn't match. What are the rules on that?
And most policies exclude coverage for mismatch of materials and only owe for the actual damage incurred. Again, some insurance companies offer additional coverage for full replacement of siding or roofing shingles for an additional premium. Check with your agent or insurance company for information as to what additional coverages they may owe, what they might offer.
All right. Now, let's say that you're having some roof work done and the roofer says that the plywood decking under the shingles isn't up to code. And then you submit your claim to the insurance company and they say they're not going to pay to bring the decking up to code. Is that the appropriate response from the insurance company?
Generally, if there is no damage to the plywood sheathing or decking, they would not owe to replace it. However, if you have purchased something called ordinance and law coverage, and your county or city will not issue a permit for the work unless you bring this up to code, then your insurance company may be responsible for payment. Again, this will only apply if the county or city has ordered such a code upgrade for your particular roof. You should talk with your code officials in your jurisdiction to determine if they require this upgrade. But remember, this only applies if you have this ordinance and law coverage under your policy. You can find additional information on what is covered in our consumer advisory, what perils are covered under your homeowner's policy, and does homeowners insurance pay for the replacement of your roof. For additional information, and these documents, these advisories are on our website. Again, www.insurance.maryland.gov.
Mary Jo, can a contractor act as your representative when dealing with your insurance company?
Your contractor cannot act as your representative, and it is illegal. Only a licensed public adjuster or an attorney may legally act as your representative in dealing with your insurance company.
So what should a consumer do if the contractor's estimate is higher than the estimate from the insurance company?
The insurance company does not owe your contractor's estimate. If the insurance company's estimate and your contractors differ, we suggest you arrange a meeting between you, the contractor, and the adjuster to go over the estimate. Generally, an agreement can be reached on the cost of the repairs. It may be a difference in measurements, etc. But generally, we see if everybody gets together and meets that an agreement generally can be reached on the cost and the scope of the repairs.
So if anything, can a consumer do if the contractor, once they've written that original estimate, they find additional damage? Can they do anything to get paid for those additional repairs?
If your contractor tells you that there is additional damage that is not included on the insurance company's estimates, you want to reach out to the company's adjuster before work is done so they can verify any additional damages, and you and the contractor can reach an agreement over what is being covered by your policy.
So one last question for you, Mary Jo. What can a roofer recover or get an insurance company to pay something called overhead and profit? I mean, what we see sometimes are that the insurance companies push back on paying that overhead and profit. Is that something that the insurance company should be paying for?
Overhead and profit, it's often referred to as O&P, is an additional fee that is usually charged by a general contractor on large losses, which require multiple tradesmen to complete all the repairs. This might include work that needs to be done by, say, an electrician, a plumber, a drywall contractor, painter, etc. The general contractor does not actually do the work, but vets, hires, and coordinates the work between the different trades. The tradesmen get paid based upon the estimate, so O&P is how the general contractor gets paid. When a roof is being replaced, there is only one trade, roofers, completing the work. The roofer is getting paid based upon the estimate and is not entitled to an additional fee for work he isn't doing, as there is no need to utilize multiple trades.
Thanks, Mary Jo. So we have received a few questions in the chat So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask whoever I think is the most appropriate person to answer the questions. So the first question we have, I think really is for both Jeff and Dave. So I'll let either of you answer this. And maybe Jeff, we can start with you. Can a public adjuster also be a contractor?
So sometimes we see a contractor who will start a public adjuster business, and they're two separate licenses. So it's possible for a person to hold two separate licenses or a company to hold two separate licenses. However, a couple caution notes that I always tell contractors that are interested in doing this. First, your public adjusting business has to operate separate from the contracting business. And sometimes what we see in contracts is something that says, if you use us, you will owe no public adjuster fee. Well, that's really not true, because there's still going to be compensation. We've seen when we do some of our investigations, we kind of find out through bank records how the money flows. So I always tell contractors, if you're interested in starting a public adjusting business as part of your way to be more to your consumers and increase your business, it has to remain separate. And a big thing is the law says there has to be an escrow account for the funds that a public adjuster gets from an insurance company. So they can't, if the contractor and the public adjuster are kind of the same business, they can't just take that check from the insurer and drop it in the operating account for the contracting side of the business. So I always tell them to keep yourself out of trouble, stay separate as much as you can, or you can stay separate, not as much as you can, but do it. And that way you'll avoid conflicts or being in trouble.
Dave, do you have anything to add to that?
Wow, I think Jeff covered it all. I don't have anything to add to that, Joy.
Great. So Jeff, this next question is for you also. The person has said that essentially sometimes you have agents that will work with the consumer on their behalf when they're trying to get a claim taken care of. Are there limitations on what the agent can do if the consumer hires a public adjuster?
Well, typically, once a public adjuster is hired, the insurance company is only going to talk to that public adjuster. They're only going to deal with that public adjuster. So any other parties that get involved could quite possibly and typically be ignored. So I know sometimes that agents do try to make phone calls and hurry a claim along or help out their clients. But to be honest, an agent's license is separate from a public adjuster license. And public adjusters hired to negotiate with your insurance company to settle first-party claims. Your agent is licensed to sell, solicit, and negotiate insurance contracts. So, you know, they are two separate things. And like I said, once a public adjuster is hired, the company is probably not going to talk to anybody else.
And Jeff, I've got another question for you. Can a public adjuster assist with a commercial property loss?
Yes, I know we've concentrated on talking about roofs and homeowners, but public adjusters can work in the commercial field. It's a different type of field than your typical homeowners. A public adjuster concentrates on homeowners, and the business people that need commercial public adjusters are usually more savvy about hiring one, because the public adjuster on a commercial claim, they'll look at your inventory loss, they'll look at, because there's different coverages under a commercial policy as a residential. There's loss of use coverages, there are a lot more detailed coverages that go into a commercial. So yes, they can do commercial or resident or a personal lines, it doesn't matter.
So Mary Jo, this question is for you. What should a consumer do if the contractor tells them that the entire roof has to be replaced and the insurance company owes that entire amount for replacement?
Again, that's not necessarily correct. It depends on the terms of the policy, and it depends on the reason the roof needs to be replaced. If the terms of the policy say they owe for the damage that was caused by the cover peril, so say wind, and wind has taken off a dozen shingles, the insurance company will come out and say, we owe to replace a dozen shingles. They may even agree with the contractor. Absolutely, your entire roof needs to be replaced, but it needs to be replaced because your roof is worn out. The insurance company, under most homeowners policies, owe for the damage unless you've purchased that additional coverage for full roof replacement. And if you have that coverage, then your insurance company may owe because you've bought additional coverage for an additional cost. But generally, the insurance company owes for the damage, the amount of damage, not to replace a roof. But again, it depends on the situation and the coverages.
And so, Mary Jo, I've got another question for you. What if the roof leaks and the general contractor has to have a drywaller, a painter, and a roofer? Do they get O&P in that circumstance?
Again, it depends on the claim. Let's say the tornado has come through and done severe damage to the roof, and there's a large amount of interior damage, and you need to bring multiple people in. It could be electrical involved, then possibly O&P. But if it's a leak and a section of drywall ceiling needs to be cut out and patched and painted, again, the insurance company may push back and say overhead and profit isn't necessary. O&P, again, let's, at an example I used, you've had a fire. You've had a large loss and there's a fire and your home needs extensive repair. General contractor is going to make sure that the plumbing and the electrical go in before they replace drywall. Because if the drywall contractor comes in first, replaces the drywall, then the painters come in and paint, and the electricians and plumbers have to access the wires and the plumbing behind the walls, that's going to have to be done twice. In a roof situation where you've had some leaks, they need to do some patching on the ceiling and repainting. Again, it's not a matter of coordinating multiple people. So they may say in that case, O&P is not something that they're willing to pay. And that would be something to speak to or have your contractor speak to your adjuster, or again, you, the homeowner and the contractor and the adjuster may all want to meet and discuss the need for O&P. And if ultimately the insurance company decides it's not necessary, there may not be anything requiring them to pay.
Thanks, Mary Jo. So Dave, this next question, it's a little long, is for you. I have multiple appraisals that I have handled where the work is completed and we request the invoice/contract from the contractor. They provide a contract that states for the price, and this is in quotes, whatever the insurance company pays or whatever the award of the appraisal, close quote. Is that a legal and binding contract under the MHIC? I have never known a contractor to collect no money from an insured and wait for the appraisal award.
Well, let me address the first part of that question. I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to be able to determine from that little bit of information whether or not this particular contract's legal and binding. But in general, the home improvement does require certain clauses to be included in a contract. One of them is the agreed consideration. So there needs to be a price put in the contract. A contract, so this would be deficient under home improvement law, but whether it's legal or binding, I think you're going to need to talk to an attorney to determine that portion of it. But it is highly deficient.
Thanks, Dave. Jeff, this next question is for you. And once again, this is a little long. I have had roofers discuss coverage in negotiating the loss. If they do not have a PA license, can they discuss coverage? What should an adjuster do if this occurs? Should it be reported to the MIA?
So I know there's been some discussion about, and I've heard during this time, people are talking about, well, my contractor said this should be covered. My contractor said, different things about the insurance coverage. What I'd like to stress is I'm not familiar in depth at all with the licensing requirements of the contract. But I will tell you that a public adjuster needs to take and pass a test. And that test is on basic insurance knowledge that is needed to to start in the field as a public adjuster. So I would say honestly that if your roofer's telling you, about coverages and things like that, it's better to deal with somebody that has some type of insurance license that's related to your claim when taking that information into your decision making. And to answer the second part, if you think somebody's operating as an adjuster without a license, then it should be reported to the Maryland Insurance Administration's fraud unit. Because working in the insurance business without a license when one's required can be considered a fraudulent act.
And thanks, Jeff. This next question is for Dave, and it may also be for Jeff. Can a contractor under an insurance, when involved in an insurance claim, ask for an appraisal, or is that something that only the consumer and an insurance company, are those rights only for those two?
I'm not sure I can give a complete answer on this, Joy, but there's nothing in home improvement law that would restrict a contractor from requesting an appraisal. If it's part of the contract negotiation, home improvement law, I don't have a problem with it. I'll let Jeff address that a little more detail.
Well, I'm not sure exactly at what point this appraisal is being requested, but usually and I think Mary Jo discussed it earlier when she was talking about additional work. So, once an appraisal is done by whether it's the company adjuster or a separate appraiser that comes out, if damage is found later, then the contractor should, notify the homeowner, or maybe the contractor does know who the company adjuster is right away, but they should just contact whoever was handling that claim and the homeowner, and then let it go from there, let the process go in from there for additional damage found, additional work needed.
Thanks, Jeff. Patty, that's all the questions I see. Are there any more in the chat?
There are no more questions in the chat.
All right. Do you want to open it up, or you tell me what you'd like us to do next?
Sure. I think now we're going to go to those of you who have called in on the phones. And so I'm going to give you an opportunity to unmute. Just please be conscious of the fact that more than one person might be unmuting at the same time. So give each other space and take turns. What you're going to do to unmute is you're going to hit *6 on your phone. You're going to do that to unmute, and you're going to do that to mute again as well. So that's *6. And so if there's anybody on the phones who would like to go ahead and ask questions, now is your opportunity.
Hey, Patty, I had a quick question that kind of went off the last question we just had. Hey, did you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So Jennifer had asked about, and Jeff had answered about the contractor requesting appraisal. I think what she's asking, and I see this all the time, a roofer goes out, he looks at a claim, he writes an estimate, the insurance company doesn't agree, they write an estimate, they tender the undisputed payment. The contractor doesn't agree, he files appraisal. And a lot of times, I don't even think the insured knows they filed appraisal. And then they start the appraisal process under the insurance policy. And I've seen it where they pay the umpire fee. It comes right, I've seen the copies of the checks. So the insured is not paying for the appraisal, which is kind of contrary to what the coverage says. And this contractor is representing the insured, making decisions regarding appraisal, appointing appraisers, having those appraisers appoint umpires and proceeding through the process. Is that legal? They're not public adjusters. The insured a lot of time doesn't have knowledge they're going to appraisal. And they're doing it on behalf of that insured. Is that something we should be reporting to the MIA? Is that something we should be challenging when it happens? I think that's kind of what Jennifer's question was, not to speak for Jennifer.
So let me just start by, we are not in a position to provide legal advice, but what I would suggest is if you find those circumstances, you should file a complaint with the agency enforcement unit, and they will look into the matter to determine whether or not it's something that violates Maryland law.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Anyone else who has called in on a phone? Does anyone else have a question? All right, anyone, one last opportunity if you have any questions in the chat. I see no more questions in the chat. So with that, I just want to say thank you to everyone today for being at this event. And I'm going to go ahead and close. Thanks everyone for attending.